The world remembers the explosion, the blinding flash, the reactor core cracking open like a wound in the earth, the column of fire visible from miles away. But that moment, that single famous second, is not where this story begins. This story begins after. It was 1:23 in the morning when reactor number 4 destroyed itself. The explosion was not one, it was two. The first blew the roof off the building. The second sent a column of burning graphite and uranium 2 kilometers into the night sky. And then the silence that followed was worse than the sound. In Pripyat, just 3 kilometers away, people heard it. Some woke up. Some looked out the windows and saw the glow on the horizon. And then they went back to sleep. Because nobody told them, not yet. That is what makes the aftermath of Chernobyl so disturbing. Not only the explosion, not only the reactor, but the hours that followed when the danger was already everywhere and almost no one in the city knew how to see it. The first men sent to Chernobyl were firefighters. They arrived at 1:28 a.m., 5 minutes after the explosion. They were told it was a roof fire. They were told to put it out. They were not told what they were walking into. The enemy here could not be seen the way fire could. It did not roar like the reactor had. It did not announce itself. It settled silently on clothing, on skin, on metal, on concrete, on trees, on windows, on air. And the men closest to it had no way to understand what they were absorbing. Lieutenant Vladimir Pravec was the first one to lead one of his units. He was 23 years old. He had a wife. He had a daughter who was 4 months old. He looked up at the reactor and saw burning pieces of graphite scattered across the ground, glowing blue in the dark. He sent his men toward it. The dosimeters they carried read up to 3.6 roentgens per hour, the maximum their instruments could measure. The actual radiation levels at the reactor core were over 15,000 roentgens per hour. They were measuring an ocean with a teaspoon. By morning, 6 of those first responders would be hospitalized. Within weeks, many would be dead. But in those hours, they stood on top of the most radioactive place on Earth without protection, without understanding, without the truth, and they did their jobs. Saturday morning, April 26, 1986. Children went outside to play. Parents went to the market. Young people walked through the park. A wedding was held in Pripyat that day. There are photographs. The couple is smiling. The sky behind them is clear and blue. The reactor is 3 kilometers away. In many disasters, the danger is obvious. You run from the fire. You avoid the collapsing building. You leave the flood behind. But in Chernobyl, people stood near the danger without recognizing it as danger at all. They breathed it. They walked through it. They watched it. Every ordinary decision they made that morning became part of the tragedy. The authorities knew by morning. They knew the reactor had been destroyed. They knew the radiation readings were catastrophic. They knew the city was being poisoned by air that had no color, no smell, no warning, and they decided to wait. The Soviet system ran on hierarchy, approval, and precedent. No one in Pripyat could order an evacuation without Moscow. Moscow needed to understand the situation. Understanding the situation meant commissioning a report. Commissioning a report took time. Time is what no one in Pripyat had. The evacuation order finally came at 2 p.m. on April 27th, 36 hours after the explosion. Residents were told to bring documents, warm clothing, and food for 3 days. They were told they would be back by the end of the week. Most of them never returned. The city of Pripyat was abandoned in less than 3 hours. Clocks stopped. Plates were left on tables. Books were left open. Photographs stayed on walls. Shoes remained by the door. A city of 50,000 people erased in an afternoon. Not because life ended in one dramatic instant, but because history sometimes destroys places by making them impossible to continue. The world remembers April 26, 1986. The explosion, the fire, the reactor glowing in the night. But the real story of Chernobyl, the one that shaped everything that came after, happened in the silence that followed. In the hours when men were sent to die without being told why. In the morning when a city went to market while the air was already killing them. In the bureaucratic delay that traded 36 hours of calm for decades of consequence. Chernobyl did not become a tragedy only when Reactor 4 exploded. It became a tragedy when the disaster entered the city before the city knew how to name it. The explosion lasted seconds. The morning after looked almost ordinary. And that is the trap hidden inside this disaster. The danger arrived before the understanding. The aftermath was forever. This is the unseen after, because the moment you remember is never the whole story.